Hey guys, Tetsamaru here. You know, I know it's been a while since my last video of really anything, but just been really busy lately. Right now I'm just kind of taking a break from things and trying to get my overall stress level down. I just got a Persona 4 Arena. Pretty good. You know, playing this, it's kind of just made me wonder, you know, are like some genres better off like not having a story at all? I remember back in the day, well, I say this back in the day, but it's not really that long ago, where you play fighters and you wouldn't expect like a full-on story from a fighter. Same thing for like puzzle games and, you know, first-person shooters at the time. And now with games being, I guess, more theatric, you play first-person shooters like, you know, Gears of War and Call of Duty, and you get into that thing where you could like YouTube the entire story. And I mean, I'm sure a lot of game companies like hate this, because for people like me, we don't really play the games for the gameplay, we play it for the story. That was kind of my stance on playing RPGs. Back when I was a lot younger, especially like in my childhood days, whenever I played an RPG, I gravitated towards more RPG, but at the time I don't think I considered myself an RPG player. I still consider myself an overall gamer. You know, I still play platformers, and I still play pretty much any of the genres out there besides sports games. So, as I gravitated towards more RPG, I just kind of played it just so I could like unlock the next part of the story. And that was kind of how a lot of games were back then. You'd have to play for like an hour or two, and you unlock a piece of the story. Play for another hour, you unlock a piece of the story. And as games got more and more, I don't know, I guess got bigger, you didn't have to play for so long just to get another piece of the story, unless you actually grinded for levels or anything or something like that. I kind of missed that in a way. It was kind of, there was a big reward system. You know, you play and you're playing just so you could get that cutscene, so you could play for, you know, just like 10 seconds of like an animated scene. And this, especially like in the PlayStation 1 era, when I really got into RPGs, and I realized that I've been only playing RPGs and skipping every other genre, I would play for like, you know, an hour or two, grind levels, all just so I could like beat the boss, go to the dungeon, and read what the characters themselves have to say, and maybe get just 10 or 15 seconds of an anime scene, and it just felt so good, you know? So nowadays, first-person shooters, I'm finding myself just not playing them, but rather going to YouTube just to see the story. And, you know, you could like, it's like watching a movie almost, because someone else who's played the game much more skillful than me, you know, they got through all that boring stuff, and I could just see the story part. And like, it lasts for like an hour or two, so it's like watching a movie. If you were to like compress if you were to take out all the gameplay and just put in the story elements for like any of the old school RPGs, you'd probably only have like 30 or 45 minutes of pure story. And that's not very long when you think about it. Story, it really got a lot longer once the PlayStation era hit. I mean, there are a few exceptions, of course, to the rule. Chrono Trigger was a really, really long RPG, even by, I guess I want to say by Super Nintendo standards, because when I played like Final Fantasy VI or 3, if you want to talk about United States, you know, numbering system, it just didn't seem that long to me. Like, yes, it did take me like a month or two to beat it back then, but when you take out all like the grinding and the gameplay elements, it's like an hour long. And I guess it kind of also depends on how long it takes you to read the story. Because if you're a fast reader, it lasts even shorter. And back then, you know, there were also no vocals either. It depends on if you're the type of guy that you're the type of person that just reads it and then goes to the next area of text. You know, just hit next, 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 without letting the vocals actually finish. You know, once the PlayStation 2 era hit, all the story scenes were pretty much just getting voiced like 100%. So, you know, you can read faster than what it takes to actually speak it. And if you were to actually let it play out, then like it actually lengthens it by like twice as much as it was before. You know, even if, especially if you like are a fast reader such as me, because like I could read like, you know, like take the Persona series for instance. I could read like the entire text box in like 1 or 2 seconds, but it takes the characters, you know, maybe 5 or 8 seconds to actually speak it out loud, especially if there's like pauses or something. And now I'm playing Persona 4 Arena, and you know, I'm into fighters now, or rather, I've kind of gotten back and forth between my childhood and my teenage years. In my teenage years, I was like pure into RPGs. In my childhood, I was more all around. Now I'm back to being all around. So I'm playing fighters. I'm mildly playing first-person shooters. I still don't like them too much. And sports. What can I say? You know, I just don't really like them. I like NBA Jam, but maybe that's a story for another time. You know, I'm playing Persona 4 purely for the story, and I hope this game gets showed off at EVO next year, and I'll see whatever tournaments I could like play for this, because I do like the battle system, so I like it better than Marvel vs. Capcom, so I will, you know, practice up this game just a bit, you know. This game has, I remember reading like when this game was like first being advertised, where Atlas was like advertising this game would have like 60 or like 80 hours of story, maybe 40. I can't remember what the advertisement was back then. It was somewhere close around there, but I remember like batting my eyelashes because I was like, what? Because it's a fighting game. Like, you play Street Fighter, and like there's more story now than there was back then, but even the Street Fighter story, you could condense it into like only 1 or 2 hours. 1 hour. It's not even 2 hours. It's gotta be like 1 hour. And then you get like Blaze Blue and Guilty Gear with a lot much longer of a story. I mean, this is made by Arc System, so, or rather, the story was made by Arc System. I mean, it's still an Atlas game, of course, but they were the ones that built up the system, so it's really reminiscent of Blaze Blue, how that story was played out, where I really like this, personally, when I spend more time on the story than I do on the gameplay. I guess that's why these days, when it comes to, like, I guess I want to separate it into categories, but visual novels and actual games. I've gravitated more towards, you know, playing visual novels than I have playing actual games. Excuse me. When I want to play a game, I actually play a game where I'm actually gonna play it. It sounds so weird to say it, but with games, you know, being more and more like some kind of cinematic movie now, I think the scale of it is kind of like started to like really balance out. It's like almost 50-50, you know, depending on the genre, especially RPGs. With RPGs, you play for an hour, but then you get like 1 hour story for that 1 hour playtime. So it's actually kind of equalized for RPGs. And then you play like first-person shooters and fighters. Most of your time playing those should be playing the actual game, not reading the story. And yet here I am playing Persona 4 Arena or Blaze Blue, and I just, for like every, you know, okay, like a round is like 99 seconds, but they aren't typically lasting that long, especially if you're playing on easy mode. Because if you're playing for the story, you are going to put it on easy mode, and for like 2 minutes of gameplay, you're getting like half an hour of story. especially for visual novels, for like a minute of clicking, you're getting like an hour of story. Depending on how long you read, how fast you read, and if you're letting the characters actually vocalize the text boxes. So, you know, should this be the way... I don't know, I guess I want to say, should this be how gaming, the segregation between gaming and story go on into the future? Because I know even now, there's still a lot of gamers that just don't care about like the story at all. They just get into play. Not to jump on the bandwagon, but I'd especially say it's like the Call of Duty fans and just the first-person shooter fans in general. You know, they get in just to play the multiplayer. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, I mean, if it's what you like, then you buy the game specifically for the multiplayer. Then, you know, that's how it is. Especially if the company themselves are also doing it just for the multiplayer also. Especially Fighters. Fighters is all about, you know, multiplayer. All about the versus. Like, it's weird for me now that I'm actually looking forward to Fighters. Not just because it's a game to play, but because it's another story that I could get into. Even though I'm more of a well-rounded gamer than I was in my teenage years, you know, I am still mostly into RPGs and visual novels, if you want to count that as part of gaming. But, you know, like, I think gaming right now is like in this weird position because I think if you're working for any of the game companies right now, you're stuck in this catch-22. You can't please everyone. And, you know, back in the day, you actually could kind of please everyone because gaming was supposed to be this very niche audience. It was supposed to be like only like the nerdiest of nerds would play them. And now like everybody and their grandma plays games. So it would become profitable. Games have become profitable, and that's good and bad. Like, I have very mixed feelings about this, because I'm glad that the game companies themselves are making more money, and I'm glad that more people are able to get into the business of that. Because I remember when I was young, I did want to become, or I did want to be a part of that industry, you know, whether it be like programming games, working on the art. You know, I just wanted to be a part of that creation process. But back then, it was also a very competitive market because they could only hire so many programmers and so many artists because there wasn't just that much money to be made. And now, you know, with especially with the PlayStation 2, PlayStation 1 era, with the addition of voice actors, there are just so many positions to fill that it's become just kind of a regular thing. And I look like maybe I look into 5 or 10 years from now and into the future, and I wonder, you know, just how much more evolution can gaming really go, you know? Back in the day, you know, they were really trying to push like the whole 3D thing, and now our 3D is getting to be really, really good to the point where you look at Final Fantasy 13 and putting gameplay aside, the graphics are, you know, really good. Look at a lot of first-person shooters, and the people actually look like people. I mean, when you look at Final Fantasy 7, come on. It's with that transition between like sprites and like models that look realistic, it looks so odd. When you go to look at PlayStation 1 games that was in that transitional period, and even like N64 games, it looks so weird to see the sprites in 3D because like now you're not looking at like this tiny 24 by 24 pixel little art. You're seeing this blown up, and like you see all the imperfections of it. And then when you look at like Final Fantasy 8, where they were starting to get better at like more realistic models, you know, fast forward to 5 or 10 years later, now the models look so human-like, where, you know, at this point, are we gonna like start strapping on the 3D goggles now and just like be in the game? You know, this is coming from like a gamer that's like, you know, back then when we didn't have much of a technology-wise for games now. So, you know, going from pixels, sprites, to fake 3D, to real 3D. And when I say fake 3D, hopefully some of you understand what I'm talking about, where when you look at an object, no matter how you like change and rotate the camera, it looks like it's always facing you. Now that is fake 3D, because like the programmers or like the 3D architectures or whoever was working on that, they didn't bother making like even like 4 dimensions, 4 different views for it. It's just a cutout. It's like Paper Mario style, really. And you know, back in the PlayStation 1 era, rotating your camera was supposed to be such a big deal. And that was like the entire gimmick for the N64 with the C buttons. But now most game systems have like 2 analogs, and 1 analog is pretty much now the camera analog. That's what we should call it now, you know? We just call it the camera button. Or maybe not the camera button, but just the camera control stick. That's what games use it for now. With like a couple of games that use it for like some kind of secondary movement. But you know, I sound so old talking about this because I'm actually kind of afraid at like how much more mainstream gaming can go. I suppose a part of me still wishes gaming was like this very niche audience, so like we didn't have to share it with, you know, the general populace. But at the same time, I am glad that I can talk to, you know, someone else that's like not in this niche audience, and at the very least find some common ground with them. You know, especially when I like talk to my little sister. She was not what I would call a gamer at all, but even now there are games that she does enjoy, and games that like I could play with her that like I would also enjoy to a certain degree. Like it might not be like a gamer game, but it still has enough of a fun factor that I could like play it with her and still have fun. You know, especially when it comes to like party games, you know, she's really big into the Mario Party series, and that's something I could play with her without her feeling, you know, too bad, because like I can't play fighters with her because I'm just gonna decimate her, and she can't play fighters with anyone else because people that aren't really into that genre aren't going to play it anyway. So I'm not really sure why I make this rant. I guess it was just because I haven't uploaded anything in a while, and as you can tell, I'm taking a really casual approach to this rant video because like I'm actually sitting on my sumo beanbag in front of my television. Well, I guess not playing Persona 4. I'm just kind of like dicking around in the gallery mode, playing music while I'm, you know, talking to you guys. And I actually went into this rant not knowing how to start this off, but I talk for quite a bit already, so I'm just gonna cut this off, you know. So with that being said, this is Tetsamaru, over and out.